So it's 10:30 on my phone and on my watch. And so let me invite people to occupy these chairs. Chairs are always important in our culture. So together with the two gentlemen from the ADB, I request our civil society colleagues to also come up. Tisha, I want you to come here so we can sandwich the ADB folks and all the rest of us along there. But Tisha here, bringing up the front. Yes, Titi. Should I do like a roll call? You know who you are, Hussein Jarwar, JB. So we'll keep 2 seats. The tan seats. So you arrange. We are all color coded here. Okay. So the tan seats for the ADB, the pristine white for the CSOs. No two men together in suits. Yeah, come, Mayan. We've never gone, gotten out of our, what was it called? What is that chair game called? What was it? We used to play musical chairs. Yes. There's no music and there's no Priyantha. Are we expecting him? Roselle, are you here? Yeah. Oh, Heidi. Is he on his way here? Meanwhile, Edie Furno, you can come up. Be the brave one to lead from the front. We'll So even as I wait for Priyantha, I'm a little blinded by all the lights. Let me go through what I do need to go through before we actually begin. And as you know, some of our participants have joined us via Zoom, and that's all very nice. And meanwhile, those of us in the room, I'd like to remind us all that this is a safe space. And it's, as you see, a kind of open, kind of town hall format that we are trying out. So it's an open space of engagement, participatory dialogue. So please feel free to engage with those on stage. And so if you need to photograph while here, and Hemanta is doing that right now. Thank you for reminding me that I must make this announcement. We'd like that you seek permission because, or shall we just ask those on the stage? Does anyone have any objection to you being photographed and put on social media also, perhaps? None. When Priyantha comes in, please remind this forgetful me to ask him too. But as of now, you can go ahead, Hemanta. And we'll be using the Pigeonhole Live for our Q&A session. We will give precedence to those of you who have joined us in person in this room in Milan. But for those online, and I think even those here, Pigeonhole Live is a simple, interactive, mobile website where you can simply put in your questions. And on your smartphone, on your tablet, on your laptop, you can launch the internet browser, go to www.pigeonhole.at and key in the event passcode, which is Milan all in caps and 2025 that you cannot put in small. Okay? So Milan 2025. You can also scan, of course. All up there. I don't need to speak. So we do have kind of stellar cast here, and we think it'll be a great interaction once Priyantha completes the whole cast here. We are talking energy today, and we are talking of unpacking the risks in ADB's just transition agenda. There's lots to learn from all of them on stage, some with grassroots understanding that go right up to a policy level understanding and pushing the bank to think beyond its blinkered state that we sometimes find it in. We also know that we are staring ahead, not at an abyss, but well, it could be an abyss because the kind of geopolitics at this time means that it can be a very challenging situation. We are wondering how ADB's multilateralism will actually save the day or save the planet, whichever. And let's hear from the two men from the ADB how they think they can swing this. We know that the USA is tending to walk in the other direction. In Europe, too, we find that there is oil and gas and nuclear that is coming up on the agenda, things that are worrying all of us in the room. The ADB is actually going into its ADB Energy Policy Review for 2025. There has been slow movement on this. We have been told, and this is basis a discussion we had with Priyantha, I think it was end March of this year, where he said that from the ADB AGM in Milan and onwards, the process would start, the process of engagement, and then, of course, taking it to the board, etc. It's a year-long process, but of course, everyone is a little sort of watching and waiting as to how things pan out. And whether the policy review itself will open up a Pandora's box is what is also on everyone's mind. So I think this is really the best time to have this dialogue. Priyantha is taking some more time, but what we could do is perhaps hear from our ED. Bertrand Furneaux is the Executive Director of ADB for Belgium, France, Italy, Israel, Portugal, Spain, and Switzerland. All of these countries we hope will be our ally in the just transition push that we all collectively aspire towards. He is a French national with a background in political science and public law, and has previously headed the Regional Economic Department for Southern Africa and held various roles in the French Ministry of Economy and Finance. I'm assuming you will like to speak from where you're seated. Okay, over to you, Bertrand Furno.
So,
opening remarks.
Yes, good morning. And first of all, as the director for the host country, Italy, I would like to welcome all of you to Milan. Thank you very much to attending our annual meeting, the first in Europe since 2016. Second point, the dialogue with NGOs and CSO is critical in the view of the European shareholders that I represent. I had already this morning three meetings with NGOs and CSOs, and it's very important in our role of board members. And we have a very, very important agenda to improve ADB accountability, as you know. Last year, the board approved the new environmental and social framework of ADB, and it will enter into force 1st January next year. So we are in a transition year. But we are also currently working on the review of our accountability mechanism to make it more up to date, I would say, and accessible for stakeholders. And hello, Priyanka. And as you said, regarding the energy sector, this year will also be important. During the recent months, we had work between board and management on a new important issue, the critical minerals. And after this annual meeting, a paper will come to the board to position ADB. ADB was not active in this sector by opposition of some of our peer MDBs, but we see the importance of this sector for the energy transition. So we will work soon on this project. And also we have to review our energy policy that was approved in 2021. So 2021, it's not very far away in the past, but the energy sector is facing important developments in terms of technology shifts. So it's important that we update our policy in the field of energy. And with these introductory remarks, maybe I will give the floor to our colleague, Priyanta.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edie Furno, and welcome, Priyanta. Priyanta Vijayatunga is Senior Director in the ADB's Energy Sector Office and has had 30 plus years of experience, including 14 at the ADB. So there's been no 7-year itch, no 14-year itch at all. His expertise lies in energy policy, regulation, and clean energy. And he holds a doctorate in power system economics from the Imperial College in London. Priyanta, 2 minutes where you lay the ground.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and for that generous introduction. In fact, I don't have much to add because CD Fruno basically explained what we are doing in ADB. What I want to add is the most important part is that, we are in consultation with you when we develop these things. And when we eventually come up with the policy, of course, it should be a balanced policy because we have all stakeholders from this end to the other, and we should take opinions, views of all these different stakeholders and try to do the right thing. And you are obviously a very important part of that consultation process and providing inputs to whatever we do in the energy sector operations. So energy policy forms our basis for energy sector operations. And as ED Funo said, we are in the process of reviewing the energy policy. But as I should confess that it is not going to be an overhaul of the energy policy because we have had that policy in operation only about 3.5 years. I don't think we have a single project completed under that policy, although we have started projects under that policy. So we don't have a lot which we have learned from this policy as yet, but there are certain areas where we think we can improve on, and we will work on it. So we are reviewing it because it's already mandated within the policy. So that's what I want to add. So you are an important part, important input to our policy and operations discussion in the energy sector. We really look forward to hearing from you and responding to your queries and see how we can move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanta. And we've organized this as a town hall so that it'll be a participatory dialogue with you and Edie Furno. Thank you. That was for Priyanta because he looked very out of breath. Yeah. Yes, I was saying yesterday that it's just not for the old people like me. Okay, so now we go on to listening to civil society voices, something that Priyanta said that he wants to hear. And it, of course, kickstarts this kind of dialogue with the energy policy review going to move forward. Important voices, and we've divided this into two sections of 4 CSO voices in one, based on fossil fuel finance and the ETM, and another 4 on false solutions and critical minerals. So we'll go with the fossil fuel finance and energy transition mechanism first, and I call upon Isabel Soreska, we call her Tisha, from the Center for Energy, Ecology and Development in the Philippines. She is the transformative, I can't even say it right, transformative finance and renewable energy lead at CEED, focusing on energy policy and people-centered development. She's actually an environmental lawyer and has co-authored reports like Leaving Behind ADB's Dirty Energy Legacy and another called Greening the ADB. Clearly the right person to champion our collective cause. Over to you, Tisha.
Thank you so much for that very generous introduction, Vidya. And it's such a pleasure to be here with everyone. Thank you for taking the time to engage with civil society and everyone, all of the stakeholders who are joining us here today. It's so important to emphasize that we're having this discussion in the midst of the energy policy review that Vidya has already mentioned, as we continue to urge the ADB to close the gaps that we see manifesting and have become causes for issues and concerns as their projects and financing move forward. Specifically, we'll be calling, or rather on our end, we'll be calling on 3 gaps that we think, or we'd like to emphasize that the ADB close, that we can ensure that its just transition agenda proceed with as little issues as possible and with the best outcome in mind for all the stakeholders. To emphasize also, I am from the Center for Energy, Ecology and Development, which is based in the Philippines, one of the countries where the pilot programs of the ETM will be taking place. So that said, the first call for the policy review that we're asking is that the loophole or the gap in the coal policy be closed. First of all, we do know that there is no current provision restricting financing or partnering with companies, or whether that be private or public, that are expanding their coal fleet. As I said, a case in point for this is the energy transition project in the Philippines. The ADB is co-financing the ETM pilot, also within the Climate Investment Fund Accelerating Coal Transition Program. We know that the pilot project that they've selected for this is, or rather the main one that they're looking at now, is a STEAG project in Mindanao, which is a coal plant. It's currently owned by the Aboitiz Corporation, which is under a BOT, or a Build, Operate, Transfer program. So it's going to be owned by this private company until at least 2031. And we know that Aboitiz, since knowledge of this plant selection has come about, has slowly been increasing its share such that it's almost majority owned. It's almost the majority owner of the coal plant now, which raises questions about what signals this ETM is reflecting into the market, given that its current owner is increasing its share in anticipation of the retirement from the ETM. Another major cause for concern is that Aboitiz is actually expanding its coal fleet by adding an expansion of one of its existing coal plants, which many stakeholders in the Philippines have raised is actually a circumvention or a violation of the existing moratorium against greenfield coal-fired power plant projects in the Philippines and their expansion. So by partnering with Aboitiz, or rather by financing an ETM through an Aboitiz-owned project, it's actually contributing to the expansion of coal plants in the Philippines. Second, we call on the policy review to close the gap on gas financing, which we know has existing restrictions. But by maintaining the narrative that gas is a transition fuel, it sends that signal into markets like the Philippines, where studies have shown that transition fuel in the form of gas is actually not necessary, and we should actually be weaning off gas by 2040, and that we need to be 100% renewable energy reliant, so that we'll be aligned with the 1.5 goal by, again, 2040. Lastly, we also call for the ADB to close the gap on false solutions, which will be expounded on later on. But this is important in the context of the ETM because there are current concerns which are not fully addressed, that these plants will only be repurposed for co-firing or even repurposed into gas projects. And that's all for me and Center for Energy, Ecology and Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisha. Important points made, and I hope Priyantha and Ferno will actually respond to all this in good time. Next, I go on to Merete Luft from Urgewald, who will give us some insights about the ETM. We've already heard from Tisha about how problematic it is in the Philippines. And we all have such misgivings about it. Merete is an energy campaigner for ADB and AIIB at Urgewald, focusing on multilateral financial institutions and the just energy transition. With a background in political science, economics, and a master's in development studies, Merete, it's over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to us, and also thank you so much for Tisha for setting the stage on the ETM. So the energy transition mechanism, just to bring everyone on the same page, is supposed to phase out coal and is designed to pay coal plant operators to shut down their plants 10 to 15 years earlier. So in theory, this sounds great, but as Tisha already has mentioned, there's many problems and many critiques from civil societies for years already. We have heard about the Philippines, but then also we have looked into Kazakhstan, which is the latest pilot project under the ETM, and have looked into their pre-feasibility studies and like the coal plants that they're considering right now. So I just want to kind of reiterate that the ADB needs to close those gaps in the energy policy review to not repeat their mistakes from the past. So first of all, as we heard, the ADB cannot, like under the ETM, cooperate with coal expansionists. We heard an example from the Philippines, but also in Indonesia. And the ETM is supporting the phase-out of Cerebon 1. Yet all the companies behind Cerebon 1 are also investing in Cerebon 2, which is a completely new coal power plant built just 1.5 kilometers away from the first one. And all of those companies are still expanding their coal operations globally, including investments in mines. So in our research on Kazakhstan, we've also seen that some of those companies currently suggested for the ETM are still expanding their coal operations. At the same time, some background information with energy experts on Kazakhstan suggested that there are smaller companies that are actually willing to phase out. So we are just wanting to reiterate that you need to exclude coal expansionists from working together on the ETM. Secondly, there cannot be a switch from coal to gas, but it needs to be mandatory to switch to only renewable energy. Because background discussions on the ETM in Kazakhstan suggested that this might be the case for Kazakhstan. But gas is not a clean transition fuel. Since 2016, gas has been responsible for 50% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, and investing in new gas infrastructure will lock countries into the fossil fuel future for decades to come. At the same time, Kazakhstan has huge renewable energy potential, for especially in wind power, and like our background discussions also suggested that a full switch to renewables would be completely possible. And lastly, we cannot talk about just transitions without talking about the justice for the affected communities. In the Philippines and also in Indonesia, communities have been protesting for years, and also in Kazakhstan, we found that some plants, for example, the ArcelorMittal plant, have devastating human rights records. So we need you to put, so the energy policy review comes as a really crucial moment, because it gives the chance to put these minimum standards into the policy, and with this, avoid to repeat those mistakes that have been done before. Thanks.
Thanks, Mariette. I think very clear. There's the opportunity for clarity, and there's an opportunity for minimum standards to be set very clearly. Also, justice for the affected communities, which I would add even remediation of, the impacted land, water, whatever. We go on to somebody from Pakistan, and I know we have two people, and they will speak one after the other. Pakistan has had continued fossil fuel investments over the years, and we're looking at the strategic positioning of the ADB in that region. To explain, we have somebody who is the CEO of Indus Consortium, Hussain Jarwar. He is also author of Water for Equitable Social Outcome, which explores the water governance and reform in Pakistan. He has nearly 2 decades of experience and has worked across sectors on green and climate finance, especially in energy and water, partnering with diverse communities and stakeholders. Hussain Jarwarji, yes, if you could share from the perspective of South Asia and Pakistan.
Thank you, Vidyaji. So, as Vidya has mentioned, that Pakistan is going under the Just Energy Transition Program, and ADB is a long-time partner and supporting Pakistan in the energy transition. But recently, we have witnessed that ADB has supported the fossil fuel financing, which has actually undermining the nationally determined contributions of Pakistan, and also creating environmental and social issues for the communities. So we have a very clear example of the JPCL, Jamshoro coal power plant, which has been recently completed in last year, which is now in a pilot phase. So this power plant is comprised of 80% of imported coal and 20% on the local coal. So the civil societies, they have previously raised concern about this fossil fuel financing, because the communities were believing that as just energy transition is happening, and the many countries and the financiers and also the communities are working on the energy transition to avoid the fossil fuels. But this project was completed in the last year. So I think, as I've already mentioned, that this will be undermining the nationally determined contributions, as well as it will be increasing the GHG emissions of Pakistan. So definitely it will be undermining the Paris climate agreements as well. So I can share you some of the energy landscape of Pakistan. Recently, in last 1.5 years, Pakistan has imported more than 18,000 megawatt solar from the China. And from that, only in last year, this solar is used in net metering. So you can Google that the net metering has gone more than 4,000 megawatt in Pakistan. So what is happening? So the consumers are leaving to the main grid, and these mega projects are the suppliers of electricity through the major grids. So people are leaving the grid and shifting to renewable energy sources like the solar. And this solar model is a decentralized and democratic model, because this is happening through market and the consumers. So this is an important thing. So I think due to that, this JPCL power project and other fossil fuel projects are converting in the stranded assets in Pakistan, and definitely it will be impacting on the economy and also the debt issues of Pakistan. Apart from that, I think this project will also be supporting coal mining in Pakistan, because this project is based on 20% on the local coal. So it means the project has started last year, and this coal mining will be continued in Pakistan due to the support of this project till its lifetime. It can be 15 years, 20 years. So I think this can be one alarming situation. Apart from that, this project will also be creating environmental and social problems, air pollution and water contamination, because this project is located the only water source of Pakistan, that is Indus River. So this is also an important thing. So we have very few questions, that how will ADB ensure the enforcement of environmental social safeguards, considering the project contribution to Pakistan's GHG emissions and the risk it poses to local communities. And second, that given the potential for this project to become a standard asset, will ADB consider any remedial measures, including the possibility of early retirement of this power plant? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hussain ji, and tough questions for you to agitate upon, Priyantha and Bertrand Furno. I also ask our other speaker, Sukarel, to please join us right next to JB there. Thank you. She's been very busy in different panels and therefore couldn't join us in time. Oops. Okay, great. Welcome. We'll go on to another perspective from Pakistan, and Asim Jafri of FFA Pakistan will tell us about the public health impacts from air pollution from the Jamshoro power plant. We've heard impacts on general health of individuals and of the major water source of Pakistan from Hussain Jarwar. And Asim will bring us a perspective after the using of low-cost air sensors and modeling. Asim Jafri has 16 odd years of experience in human rights and sustainable development. He authored the Fair Tax Monitor reports, contributed to Pakistan's Tax Reforms Commission, and now leads Fair Finance Pakistan, and advocates actively for a Clean Air Act and ESG in finance. Asim.
Thank you. Here, I would like to say first, I'm bringing forward the unheard voices of Jamshoro people, which is they are breathing toxic air. And there are several factors, but the main factor is Jamshoro power plant, where we have experienced installing 16 low-cost sensors near the radius around 0 to 50 kilometer. And we, after the reading of 7 months, we have reference monitored data and also got the satellite images. And satellite images we gathered since 2004 till today. And we have a couple of observations, especially the PM 2.5, PM 10, ozone 3, and other GHG gases. We have found that the concentration of these gases is 1.5 times more than the WHO level recommended for the countries. And the ground level concentration of ozone and the heat stress region of the Jamshoro also causing that the yield of the crops is declining in that region. The cardiovascular diseases and the other diseases also observed at the local municipal hospital, the disease burden national level 52% has been increased. This is the figure for the national level, but on the district level, it's significant. And behind this all data, we are not portraying that there is a human angle to protect it. We are just asking science-based questions to the ADB's investments. And we are saying that they have overlooked several aspects, which is underneath of the international covenants, as well as the international regulations. IPCC 1.5 degree targets, which is we expect that's the mandate of the international, our MDBs should follow and should be adhere to protect the human rights, especially the air, which is really causing the premature deaths in the country. Pakistan is the third polluted country. And investing in the energy sector, especially the coal, where the coal is not clean. The Jamshoro plant is using ultra-critical techniques, which also has the number of cases globally that is causing more deaths, and also it is uncontrollable to reduce that gases burden or whatever the technique they are using it. Through a decade ago, they have conducted the EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment. A decade ago and now, the ground realities has changed. They have never replaced it. The new EIA has not been done. And living in a developing countries like Pakistan, EIA does not have the international standards, which should be followed by MDBs like ADB. They have ignored, and ADB investment does not reveal that data. For instance, toxic release reporting, TRI, the ETM model or a reporting mechanism or just energy mechanism does not talk about it. So TRI is the main element where they can say these GHG emissions are under the control and cannot harm the human health. But it's harming because the data says it's more than unbreathable level. It's a dangerous level where the communities are suffering. And ADB's investment is unable to hear those voices. They are unable to hear those diseases burden from the hospitals because ETM doesn't talk about it. TRI doesn't talk about it and overlooked those parameters in the EIA, which is talking about to take care of the human health. Thank you.
Thank you, Asim, for bringing up the aspect of public health, the human costs of ADB's investments in Pakistan. Thank you. I've now, so we've we've gone through half our panel, and we'd like now Priyantha and Edith Furno to actually respond to what they've heard until now. Just to reintroduce, Edith Furno is the Executive Director of ADB for Belgium, France, Italy, Israel, Portugal, Spain, and Switzerland. Breathless, but over to you, Furno. First Furno, and then Priyantha.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the different comments that have been made. Well, as a board member, I would say simply that, and as a European board members, we are 3 members of the board on 12. We remain committed with the energy transition agenda. So it means work with the team, with Priyantha and his team on the review of the energy policy, and also at project level, consider the situation in each country that can be diverse, and try to build a reasonable consensus, I would say, at board level. Of course, we have heard a lot of comments about coal, and I think that funding coal projects is no more an issue for ADB. In the review, we will discuss also about the role of gas as a transition. I know this concept may be controversial, but we have to have a frank dialogue, and taking into account also the view of our development member countries. For them, it's a national energy resource, and they often consider it's an important asset for them. And of course, the question of the impacts of air pollution. So we are really sensitive to this issue. So you can count on us to maintain, I would say, a high level of dialogue with the ADB management, and try to find the best possible solution in this region of Asia or the Pacific, where the greenhouse gas emission remain a major issue. 50% of the emissions of the planet are made in our region. And also our countries are facing the severe impacts of extreme weather events connected with the climate change. At least as European, we believe that it's part of our reality, and that we have to cope with this reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Edie Furno. Thank you. And yes, I mean, somebody mentioned, I think it was Tisha, that we want the best results possible for everyone concerned. And therefore, thank you for that invitation and commitment to continued dialogue. Priyantha, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for raising all these concerns. For sure, these are very important concerns which we need to take into consideration during the energy policy review, and also when it comes to specific operations as far as specific projects are concerned. And as for the closing the gaps in energy policy, obviously we are looking at all these different suggestions. In fact, already, as you know, we have said no coal. We are not financing coal. Only place where we have open financing related to coal-fired power plant is ETM. And even in that, of course, we have our strong commitment to make sure that we do the right thing. As you said, there may be issues of dealing with companies which continue to deal with coal fleets and expanding it. Obviously, when it comes to prioritizing ETM interventions, we may have to take that into consideration. I'm fully in agreement with that. And I'm sure my colleagues will take this very seriously when it comes to ETM-related interventions. And on the gas, as you know, already energy policy is quite strict in gas financing. And we have left options open only for the cases where it relates to energy access. We have to obviously, as I said, keep a balance on what we do in terms of energy access and at the same time climate together. And what is best for the community, obviously we'll continue to do. And gas financing is heavily restricted as it stands in the policy. And so we'll continue to keep monitoring whether these restrictions, the conditions are properly adhered to, and move forward along those lines. Specific projects, I don't want to go into details of specific projects. As you know, Jamsoro, we financed as far back as about 13 years ago. And although it may have been completed only recently, as in the case of many big projects, and we have our safeguard policy and safeguard assessments and the frameworks which we have to adhere to. And I hope the safeguard monitoring will closely monitor these aspects. And as I said, when it comes to these projects, even after completion of these projects, we have continuous engagement with these countries in different projects. Therefore, we still have some leverage in talking to the governments and making sure that the projects which have been completed still work within the overall environment and social safeguard framework which we have agreed upon. So overall, I think we take these concerns seriously into consideration, and as we move forward in specific projects and energy policy review. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyantha. Yes, we are concerned that there is a legacy of coal that ADB still sort of has to handle, and while gas financing may be a matter of a balancing act, we have serious concerns about that too, Priyantha. We also know that there are member countries who are pushing you this way and that. And of course, as CSOs, we will push you in what we think is the right direction for the planet and for all of us. Our safeguards team is here, and I hope you have been listening in. And there are project-specific concerns that we hope that you will continue to engage with. We'll go on to the second part, which is about false solutions and critical minerals, something that everyone is talking about for some time now. And leading from the front, we have JB Garganera. He's from the Allianz Tigil Mina from the Philippines, but really a global voice as national coordinator of what they call the ATM, not the ETM, which is an alliance opposing destructive large-scale mining in the Philippines. He is active in environmental and human rights movements, serving in various national and international coalitions and steering committees, especially on mining and extractives, and therefore the right voice to start this session. Yes, JB, do you want to speak from there or here?
Yeah, this is fine. Thank you, Vidya. Thank you to our friends from ADB. Let me start by saying, I think the added value of conversations with CSOs is that we can be brutally honest and frank with you as we tell the stories. And then we can move forward with a dialogue and discussion. And we put radical dissenting points on the table. And then that's where a productive engagement can come in. I bring the voice of affected communities. And on this critical minerals issue, I would like to highlight 3 points. The first one on climate smart mining. I think I've mentioned this in Tbilisi last year. It isn't so smart when the policy is just consistent with the global narrative that we need to do more mining that justifies our need to achieve the clean energy transition. It's not so smart on 2 things. Number one, if we do support and invest on more mining, and then it results on more suffering for people, That I don't think that's going to be a smart move on a global scale. Now, whether we look at it at the national level, where more people will benefit, but a handful of people will carry the burden of that sacrifice, where they will be displaced, dislocated, their lives and livelihoods are put at risk because of expansion of mining. I don't think the algorithm will say this is a smart move, whether on the national level or on the global level, because we are going to mine not for our development of the poor countries, but for the energy needs of the first world country and that is not the justice and equitable development that I think ADB stands for. Second, on the CM2 Met policy framework, which would be probably up for board discussions in the next few months, we stated, and we appreciate that ongoing dialogue and discussion, and we have productively engaged on that. But I think many of us are not seeing the kind of ambition, the kind of coverage that we feel ADB can do better. Come on, guys. You have been at the forefront of the ESF. Among the MDBs, you have set the bar high. But on CM2 Met, I don't think you are ambitious enough. There are far more better, ambitious standards out there that can inform CM2 Met. In terms of transparency and accountability, there's EITI. That should find its way there on CM2 Met. In terms of accounting and auditing mine performance, there's IRMA, Initiatives for Responsible Mining Accountability. And then on the more broader human rights, due diligence, social impact of mining, there's RMI, Responsible Mining Index. Those are the kinds of standards that should be part of the conversation moving forward with these policies. Finally, I think we should be more serious on accepting and incorporating the UN Secretary General's report, Principles on Critical Minerals. I'm not sure if it's already a UN guiding principles, but there is a very recent document, 2024, and this has been adopted by the UN Secretary General and the Working Group on Critical Minerals. Of course, there's 7 principles, everything on an ideal world will deliver the social development and sustainable development. But what's very important for ADB are principles 5, 6, and 7. Principle 5 talks about international investment should be responsible and fair. Principle 6 talks about transparency and accountability on high standards so that both the bank and governments can have that accountability measure. And finally, oh God, what's that 7 point? Anyway, it's on I guess, yeah, I'll email to you that principle 7. Thank you.
But if you remember this later on in the open session, JB, do tell us all, because we are not going to be collectively emailed and we would like to know what his point was. But thank you, JB, for basically on behalf of all of us, he exhorted them to and pushed them to do better, right? So thank you for that. All of us on the panel are basically representing community voices here. Those from Pakistan said it very clearly, and but everyone is doing that. And therefore, Edie, Ferno, Priyantha, others from the ADB, we urge you to also look there to the left, Voices of the Affected. It's an exhibition of artifacts or things that represent the community, what they're going through when it comes to ADB projects. So they're really artifacts from the ground, from communities that are project affected, grappling with your projects where they're not comfortable and they have voiced their discomfort. And so it's right there at the back to the left. Okay. Let me go on to Sukarel. And Sukarel is the executive director of OT Watch Mongolia, which is, of course, in Mongolia. And she monitors the impacts of Rio Tinto's Oyu Tolgoi mine. I hope I said that correct. She also leads the Rivers Without Boundaries Coalition and advocates for human rights and accountability in development. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you. So I'm participating here as monitoring the first climate smart mining project, a TA project of ADB. Now, why we are so concerned about this project, it will be explained by the exhibit there, where traditional ADB housing support project finances coal infrastructure. And you can see from the photographs there that it's probably technologies from the 19th century. And ADB is continuing that in urban development projects in 5 Western IMAX. So these are current projects. And in its new role as a climate bank and climate smart mining TA project, we have raised concerns with the ADB, 2 CSO's letters, NGO Forum supported, and we went into discussions with the management, and right now we're in the process of commenting on their draft ESG evaluation report. Now, the concerns raised by CSOs and NGO Forum is that this standalone TA was approved without proper due diligence and full board knowledge, lack of definitions and parameters for applying climate smart mining. We couldn't get a clear answer. What is climate smart mining? What makes mining climate smart? JB just said, you know, how not smart that whole premise is. Complete lack of considerations for human rights and an enabling environment for community engagement, lack of considerations of mining harms and precautionary measures. There is one disturbing fact that it specifically mentions packaging a rare earth mineral mining project for investment. And it lacks any consideration or recognition of any CSO's concerns there. And there is also a concern that this may be connecting to its other projects. ADB is supporting a 200 kilowatt substation that will support the development of Erdenboren hydro dam in the same province where the rare earth minerals deposit is. Now, there is absolute this lack of consideration of the fact that the local community has been protesting this rare earth project development since 2020. There's climate smart approach. Key components are missing here is that Mongolia does not have an energy transition plan. It does not recognize that the renewable energy integration in mining operations is not promoted or supported by the government. That Mongolia ranks 116 out of 120 countries in its climate transition index. That legal revisions that are being introduced now are aimed at reducing red tape, expediting licensing, expediting extraction of climate smart critical minerals in the country. And there is no environmental standards enforced and no emissions reporting. Encroachment on protected areas, habitat of rare endangered species like snow leopard, Ramsar sites, and the current government's current strategic priorities are disregarding its commitments through international treaties. Mongolia has eliminated provision 2.2 in the water law, where it says that it will not disregard international treaty commitments on water decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukarel. There will be opportunities to interact and get more information. But of course, the concerns when ADB does its business and its projects in countries like Mongolia is very problematic. Before we go on to the next speaker in the Fall Solutions and Critical Minerals section, and we have two speakers left. No, three speakers left, sorry. I'd like to go to E.D. Furno. He has to go for another meeting, and we'd like to just hear from you, sir, before you leave us.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to apologize to the other members of the panel and to the audience for having to leave you early. But I thank you very much for the invitation. It's very, very interesting, very important. And don't hesitate. We must keep in touch about these important issues in the months to come, as we have this ongoing review of the energy policy and also the critical mineral approach. So you can reach us as board members easily. And again, thank you. And I leave you in the good hands of Priyanka. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, E.D. Furno. We expect you to walk with us along the way, and it's going to be a long, arduous trip. Thank you. Over to you, Titi Sontero. And Titi, of course, most of us know well, but I still have to bring up who she is for all of you here, is the executive director. We have a whole host of EDs up on stage. I'm feeling so inadequate now. So she is the ED of AXI, an organization that she co-founded in 2012. And it focuses on promoting gender, social, and ecological justice. She champions women's rights in development and climate finance policies, and supports affected communities in defending their rights and championing it right up here on the stage is Titi.
Thank you, Vidya. So this is a conversations that, happened many times already with Priyanka, but I would like to present again. The ADB thinks that geothermal is renewable source of energy and clean. But the reality is different. To now, ADB financed about 6 geothermal projects in Indonesia, and one is in the process for approval. And all those projects have a similar pattern of problems like land grabbing in the preparation for the construction, clean water scarcity for the community when the projects or when the geothermal power plants started to operate, and then air pollution of hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs, and then what we call it, the breathing problems of the community because of the air pollution, where every day you smell that rotten eggs. And then vibration of the soil because of the drilling for the thermal. And then many times the school children were encouraged by the teachers for not going to school or going out from the classrooms when they know that the drilling will start. And then there's a lot of other problems related. So if not only one place happened, but in many places where all geothermals operate, then it is a systemic issue. It is not one case. So in the case of geothermal that we already several times mentioned it with the ADB, if it is related to the energy policy, Priyanka said, oh, it is safeguard issue. But for us, yes, we know the safeguard policy failed in the implementation to protect people and environment related to the geothermal. But the mindset of clean energy, the mindset of renewable energy, it is not there if we look at the suffering of the people. So the direction, the mindset that geothermal is clean energy source have to be changed. It is not clean for the people. It causes a lot of a health issue. It causes of income issue because their agricultural land is destroyed, harvest failure, and so on and so on. So ADB has to have a different mindset, different perspective to look what is actually just, what is actually clean, not in the mindset of the banks and the investors, but what the community see and feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Titi. And I think that's a major lesson in de-learning and relearning. And we hope Priyanta and others in the bank here are listening very keenly. Our last CSO speaker on the panel coming up is Miriam Azurin, who, of course, we all call Mayang, so please feel free to do so. She heads Gaia Asia Pacific and campaigns to shift public finance away from harmful solutions towards sustainable alternatives. She has led global advocacy on development finance and sustainability. Mayang, last and never the least, so go on.
Thank you. There's a lot of pressure for me because Gaia Asia Pacific represents 200 civil society organizations in the Asia Pacific region. So I had to write my intervention just to be sure that I am really reflecting the sentiments. Justice is a complex issue because what is unjust varies in different contexts, such as the historical, political experiences, social, cultural, legal context, and they are often intertwined with issues of social inequality, power dynamic, and on collectively agreed development solutions to local problems. But the ADB offers one path towards moving the region away from fossil fuels in a fair manner, and that is energy switching from fossil fuels to clean energy. I will be speaking on waste to energy incineration, or WTE, and why it should be eliminated as a transition fuel for the region. First, WTE incineration is often branded as a clean or a low carbon source of energy. It is one of the most spectacular greenwashing of our time because it is reliant on fossil fuel-based materials. Plastic, the most favored feedstock for WTE incineration, is 99% manufactured from petrochemicals, which are derived from crude oil, natural gas, and coal. Because of its high calorific value, this is the most favorite feedstock. This means from production and disposal of plastics, they are deeply tied to the fossil fuel industry, contributing to greenhouse gases. Being fueled by WTE is being powered by fossil fuel, and financing it is indirectly supporting the fossil fuel industry. If we see waste burning from a life cycle view, it is twice more carbon intensive than coal plants. Second, WTE is undermining key international agreements aimed at protecting human health and the environment from the impacts of hazardous pollutants, globally known to be a byproduct of incineration technologies. Major pollutant is what we call forever chemicals, because they persist forever in the environment and in human bodies and can cause cancers, reproductive disorders, neurological disorders, lung impairments, and among others. Thus, there are international conventions regulating waste to energy incineration, including Basel Convention, the Stockholm Convention, the Minamata Convention, and there is the ongoing Global Plastics Treaty happening in the past 3 years. In recent researches, it is causing air pollution in Chennai, Delhi, China, and the Philippines. We can't be financing for air quality, health, and then financing for pollution. Third, financing for waste to energy is driving us deeper in a region with deep debt crisis, wars, biodiversity loss, pollution, and with the highest vulnerabilities to the impacts of climate change. And we also have reprisals. So many problems. We are watching more than 50 IFI financed WT in the region since 2015, the year the world pledged to finance the global needs for climate mitigation and adaptation. This is an injustice for the region. The case of Maldives is a clear example. From 2000 to 2022, there are 5 waste-to-energy incinerators. The recent one is the $73 million finance project, co-financed with ADB and with AIIB. In a country with 7% plastic, it needs to import waste from other countries because the waste is 70% wet waste. So how can they burn it? So this is causing the debt crisis also of the region. It is now not yet operational, and the private sector is threatening to withdraw because the government has no funds to counterpart for now. The energy policy promises it will prioritize a prudent order of utilization of waste for energy conversion, reduction of waste, reuse, recycle. And the new safeguard says it will prioritize material reuse, and recycling, prevent hazardous waste, and the transport of hazardous waste. There are good signs ahead. The AIB has canceled its financing for one of the largest waste-to-energy company, China Everbright, in 6 countries. IFC also just recently canceled financing for 4 waste-to-energy incinerators in Gujarat, India. It looks like IFIs are now seeing the huge risks from investing on waste-to-energy. When is ADB going to recognize this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayan. And so, Priyantha, we have 20 minutes left exactly. There will be questions and comments from the audience to take. But before that, if you would respond to the 4, and I know that we should have also brought on the panel somebody who would talk about large hydro, but I'm sure it'll come from the audience. So if you could respond to all the problematic, what we call false solutions, and the issues raised and how ADB must focus more on health rather than pollution.
Thank you. Once again, overall, I must thank all of you for raising this issue. Time and again, you have raised this issue. Of course, we take this up with specific project officers. I don't want to really, again, go into specific projects because specific projects may have specific issues and which needs to be dealt at project level. And we always deal with it within the framework of environment and safeguard policies and energy policy, all the policies we have. And as I said, we have the advantage because we always deal with these countries on a continuous basis in the sector. And therefore, we have the leverage, we can have the dialogue with these governments to make sure that they continue to do the right thing. So obviously, these are issues which we need to seriously take into consideration and move forward. As far as the energy sector is concerned, I must tell you, we have to carefully balance the needs of the populations when it comes to energy access. At the same time, I fully agree with you, there cannot be clean solutions where the communities are seriously affected. So they are obviously, in technical terms, they are still renewable energy projects, but they may not be helping the community. So all these will have to be carefully balanced, and I must make sure, tell you that from ADB side, we are quite conscious of all these issues, and we will make sure that we'll move forward in the right direction, in the right way. Because, in fact, frankly speaking, all these project officers and us in the management, all of us are part of the community, part of the population which benefits from these things. And if there are issues which eventually impacting the populations, we really take them into serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyantha. And now we open the floor. This town hall is formally declared open. Who will speak first? Who's taking the mic around? There. Run, here. If you would stand up, they would know where to get the mic to the... So please introduce your name and organization and go on.
Hi, thank you very much. I am Eleanor Bartolome from the Philippine Movement for Climate Justice. And thank you very much for the discussions and the concerns raised by the CSOs and the responses from the ADB management. So while we welcome the ADB's posturing to be a climate leader and its leadership for accelerating the coal transition to clean energy under the ETM, the Philippine Movement for Climate Justice wanted to register that aside from providing the controversial incentives and the transactions with the coal operators, this framework should also stress the previous and ongoing investments of the ADB and coal-fired power projects and other fossil fuel technologies. In the case of the Philippines, the ADB has provided support to multiple coal projects through technical assistance, loans, and policy-based lendings. And some of them are the Masinloc coal plant, the Calaca coal plant, and even the Naga coal plant that undergone the compliance review panel. It also acted as the transaction advisor for the liquefied natural gas plant in the Philippines located in Batangas City, which houses the center of marine biodiversity in the world, which is the Verde Island Passage. And what we're saying is, the ETM framework giving its loopholes to allow fossil fuel projects and technologies to be repurposed into fossil gas or other fossil fuel technologies, it is a double whammy that it also have no remedial framework to address the multiple mention of environmental, social, and health impacts of its previous projects and engagements, including the legacy issues related to land allocation and displacement. So without a clear framework for remedial action, public finance will be used to bail out these corporations, avoiding the investment risk while reducing and distancing themselves from accountability. So Priyantha said that the bank is committed to do the right thing, and the message that we want to live is, it is not right and just if we talk about transition and these harms are being sidelined and the communities are being left behind and kept in the dark. What we demand is accountability and remediation from the past coal investments and fossil fuel investments of the ADB. And we further highlight the call for a grants-based, non-debt creating, and unconditional support to transition to 100% renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you. There are questions coming in from the pigeonhole also, but we're giving precedence to those in the hall. So, yeah, who is the person? Yeah, Jithain, where are you? There you are. If you stand up, then she will also see you. Come up in front. Yes, there.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for the comments. I'm Jiten Yumnam. I come from Manipur, in northeast part of India. I just want to raise concern regarding the pursuance of hydropower as part of the renewable energy. There's a lot of effort to move away from coal and fossil fuel. But then I think it's also good to reflect on the multiple challenges. No, I don't want to highlight the myriad challenges, but pursuing hydropower project in a geologically fragile and also highly biodiverse area, I think it can also be highly challenging as well, like in our part of the world, because and also the push for hydropower as part of climate change solution. I think this is again a huge challenge problem in our case, because when you're raising the issues about consultation with communities, for example, and I think it should be meaningful and right-based consultation, but it should also about respecting the voice and rights of the community as well, because oftentimes the consultation process, it often ignore the voice and even the legitimate concern from the communities. Now, say, for example, in the Himalayas, in our region, in Sikkim, for example, the communities have long raised concern that, the melting glaciers in the Himalayas, because of that, it is unfeasible to pursue multiple large hydropower in the region. And in fact, the local authority, the government, even the financiers, multiple financiers, the World Bank, IFC, the financial intermediaries, they ignore those warnings, the environmental risks. But then ultimately, at the end of the day, it led to the disaster. Disaster, not just landslide or multiple years, but even lead to collapse of the dam, complete destruction of dam. This Tista 3 is a 1,200 megawatt dam in Sikkim. It's a $1.4 billion investment. So, and along with the destruction of this Tista 3 dam, it also damaged Tista 5, another 510 megawatt, Tista 6, another 500 megawatt, along and multiple other dams in the downstream part of Tista River. So what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to highlight is, it's important to acknowledge and respect the community rights and concern. And also, it's not just about the social and environmental impact of building large hydropower in indigenous territory, but also about the viability of the dam in itself. Because sometimes it can also lead to wastage of public resource. And now, in the place scheme, a lot of these companies, the financial institutions, are now, because of the damage of this multiple dam, now there's a lot of struggle with the with trying to, and in fact, the local government is also under debt as well. So there are multiple issues, wastage of public resources, social impact, cultural impact of indigenous peoples, and ultimately, at the end of the day, the accountability of the corporations who are involved, in building the dam. And because there's a lot of violations, and none of the companies are taking responsibility, and the same challenges with the financing by the IFI, and now ADB is financing multiple dams in our region as well, So probably I think it's high time to rethink the viability, the social environmental costs, and also the challenges with the application of the social and
Thank you, Jiten.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. A voice from the northeast of India. There are also others from the northeast who have concerns about a large solar project coming up in Assam. But go ahead.
Robi Hali from the Right Energy Partnership with Indigenous Peoples. In ADB's Just Transition agenda, I think it's important that, because from the indigenous people's perspective, we're so tired of being at the receiving end. We're so tired of being looked at as just to mitigate the risk on indigenous people's communities, when in fact we have our own aspirations for development and we are implementing that. So ADB has to look at indigenous peoples as rights holders who also have development aspirations. And that's the call that we have now, to also support our development aspirations, whether in renewable energy, in conservation, rather than just looking at us as beneficiaries of the projects. We are also your partners for development, not just beneficiaries.
Thank you for that important point made. And since we've had three coming in from the floor, before going on to the pigeonhole, Priyantha, would you like to respond to the three interventions made from the floor?
Again, I must say that my response is going to be generic, not very project specific. When it comes to specific technologies, in power generation, obviously, in the power planners look at all possible options from technical viewpoint, and then comes the social and environmental safeguard side. And all these will have to be eventually looked at when finalizing a project. Let's look at waste to energy, hydropower, and anything else we talk about. All these have their own technical advantages and also disadvantages. It's the same when it comes to environmental and social safeguards side. So we need to really balance all this, because eventually whatever we do will obviously have an impact on the societies and the environment where we are working in. This is part of the development, so-called economic development agenda. So we need to really balance all this and then eventually do the right thing and then the best thing out of the lot available with the pool of resources we have, pool of projects we have. So that's what we are trying to do within ADB policies. As I said, we are part of the community. I mean, the people who are dealing with all these are part of the community. They are very conscious of the impact, developmental impact of all these projects. So we seriously take those into consideration when finalizing the projects. Thank you.
Okay. All the intentions are good across the room. And yes, there's someone there.
Thank you so much. June Rubis for the Indigenous Peoples Network of Malaysia. Big thanks to the speakers on the panel. And as well, I suppose I would address sort of my statement or questions towards Priyanka. Thank you for your statements. So just before this panel, I presented on the impacts of silica mining in Malaysia, Borneo, where I'm from. So if you've missed it, please come to our panel tomorrow, where I'll be repeating about this. But Priyanka, I really appreciated when you said about continuing discussions with governments. I appreciate that. And I wonder, because coming from Malaysia, and as you know, I mean, our push for the mining industry is because as well with the response from the global supply chains and economy. So in many ways, countries are also responding towards, like the global economic movement around this. So I do believe ADB does have a responsibility to guide that conversation, particularly when we're talking about who holds the funds. Governments also listen to people with holds the funds. So I'd like to see, for example, stronger conversations from ADP with with governments like mine on, for example, how can we have more genuine FPIC processes when working in territories where indigenous communities are affected? How can you, encourage governments like my country to reform our EIA legislation to integrate more rights-based standards and biodiversity safeguards? As my colleague Robbie has said, we're rights holders. We hold solutions. We have our own aspirations, and we do have our own development plans for our territories. How can ADB, for example, support more independent monitoring of these companies? And how can they support enforcement of penalties in regards of rights violations? And I just want to comment about the whole communities. I understand, yes, I mean, particularly if we're all from the Global South, we are part of the communities, but there are within the communities, there are those who are even more affected than, say, us living in cities or in towns. Indigenous communities are very much impacted by these projects, as we have heard from our distinguished speakers on the panels. So we have to keep that in mind. I mean, we may be part of one community, but for many of us, there are those who are greatly impacted. So if you want to hear more examples of that, please come to our panel tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. One last, yes, the gentleman.
Thank you very much. Thibault Michel from the French Institute of International Relations, Center for Energy and Climate. I had a question about, we saw in the US energy policy, for instance, we talked a lot about coal retirement and phase out. We saw that the US are going the opposite way now. I was wondering your views about this change and about the impacts it could have on coal phase out in Asia and on energy transitions in Asian countries. How can it has an impact or not? And how do you see this?
Okay. So before Priyantha starts responding to those questions from the floor and, of course, comments, I can't put you all the questions that that have come up in the pigeonhole because we have just 5 minutes left, and I assume that we have to end by that time. So there is the question about how high the possibility is that you take the criticism on the ETM seriously and that you postpone extension of the ETM to other countries like Kazakhstan until the flaws in the ETM are actually, ironed out. And that's one good question your way. And also, can ADB provide a clear timeline for when this transition phase will be considered complete? And will this lead to a shift in its financing focus from gas to VRE? And how do we balance these just transition agendas? Asks Prince Ernest from the ASEAN Youth Organization. How do we balance the just transition agenda ambitions when land availability in small island developing states is concerning, alongside the issues on NCQJ, fund adequacy, and all these are set to hamper our 2030 targets. So how do you intend to juggle all of this? Yes, over to you. And you have, well, we all have only 3-4 minutes.
Yeah. Again, quickly, when it comes to, at the outset, I must tell you that this engagement is extremely important, and obviously there are no black and white solutions to what we are talking about. At the end, we have to come up with the optimal solutions considering all this, and your engagement is extremely important. All the suggestions and the criticisms are quite important for us to move forward. And naturally, even though I may not commit here itself, but all these voices are definitely seriously taken into consideration when we move forward in policy review, when we assess projects and do due diligence on projects. So thank you very much for all these inputs. And as for the questions, of course, the rest I think more or less I have answered. But the question on the U.S. stance, naturally, U.S. is the biggest shareholder, one of the biggest shareholders in our financing institutions. Their views matter. But one thing I'll tell you, what we have been doing in ADB for many years, during the last 2 decades or so, will not change much. Frankly, if you look at 2021 energy policy, it's basically putting in writing what we have been doing even before. And so moving forward, we are doing the right thing. As I said, we will balance the energy access, environmental sustainability, governance, regional cooperation, and all that together. And I don't think whatever geopolitical environment changes you find in geopolitical environment would change that direction, because that is the right direction, whatever happens in the rest of the world. So with that commitment, I stop here. Thank you.
Priyanka, and I guess this town hall will be considered a good effort if all that Priyanka said and committed to in his final words actually is kept to. They will do the right thing, and we hope the Asian Development Bank focuses on development of communities, our people, and the countries that they say they serve. Thank you all for the wonderful panel. Does anybody from the panel have something compelling to say in like 20 seconds flat? Okay. Oh my God. Okay, so I'll go with Sukarel, Asim, 10 seconds, and then last Tisha. Sukarel.
Since ADB is supporting the policy and legal framework for climate smart mining, critical minerals to clean energy technologies in Mongolia, and making Mongolia a hub for in the supply chain, I would like it to consider 4 things to ensure that potential social conflict is prevented, because ADB is coming in with privately owned land use regulation from sedentary cultures to nomadic setting where land use is a common custom. Mongolia develops an energy.
A minute, not 20 seconds.
Mongolia produces energy transition plan to ensure that the critical minerals are not used, or where they go, not used in the war industry, because this country does not have the technological and any other resource capacity. And consider the fact that Mongolia is now...
Because I know Asim will not keep to his 10 seconds.
Mongolia is now a restricted country.
Thank you. Early retirement of Jamshero power plant will be a wise decision for ADB, because the ultra critical technology has no solution for controlling the pollution. Today, we should look at those plants after having a 5 or 6 years of age. The same results are spreading the pollution. So we should learn today and announce that the early retirement is respecting the human rights. Thank you.
Very quickly, so SEED will be releasing in a few days a regional scorecard on banks, which will show that the ADB is actually one of the lead financiers of fossil gas in Southeast Asia since the Paris Agreement was signed. So with this, I'd like to emphasize again how important it is that the ADB establish a clear policy on no longer financing gas, given the role that it's already played in the expansion of this industry in this region. Second, just a very quick point, how important it is to have reparations for the communities, seconding the point raised by PMCJ. Thank you.
Thank you. And not just in Southeast Asia, actually, they are very gung on gas even in South Asia, in Bangladesh, etc. Thank you all. I shall not waste 10 seconds thanking each of you individually, but thank you all. Let's give a hand to the panel for a straight talking panel. And there's a photo op for the panel together with Priyantha, so that you are committed to do the right thing, and we have it down documented. Okay, feel free to hold him to it. And meanwhile, of course, there are friends in the audience who have said that we must stand in solidarity with what is with Palestinian CSOs and condemn the role of Israel in exporting surveillance equipment, which of course shrinks civic spaces and human rights defenders and environmental defenders' work across. Thank you.